That is what is missing when we're too nice. When we're too nice, because there's no accountability, no one is taking action. No one is doing what they need to do, what they promise to do, and what is agreed upon. Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we'll discuss how being too nice can ruin your success and happiness. When it comes to our happiness and success, how do we measure it? Most times we measure our happiness by our ability to be our most authentic self, to do the things we want to do, to say the things we want to say, to be with the people that we want to be with. Now, if you read the book Happiness by Design, he goes into much more detail and he says that we have like purpose and pleasure. He talks about the balance, but long story short, you spend more time doing the things you want to do and you spend less time doing things you don't want to do, right? Very profound. So why are we only 33% of Americans measure themselves as happy every single year that we do the happiness index that's done by Times? And I would say it's because we spend most of our time doing things we don't want to do, saying yes to things that we really don't want to spend time on, and being around people that drive us up the wall. And you and I would sit there and say, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And you're right, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So why is that the norm? And I would say it's the norm because we're all being too nice. When you're being too nice, and I'm guilty of it too, we end up spending a lot of time on things that aren't going to provide us much benefit at all. Not from a purpose perspective, not from a pleasure perspective. There's just a waste of time. And as we waste time, we sit down at the end of the day and we're just like, dang, another day went by where I didn't do what I wanted to do. Now, this could be something as simple as work, where we all know the squeaky wheel gets the oil, gets the attention. That's where people pay attention. If you are in any sort of position where you work in sales or you work in accounting or really any part of a business, your customer that is the loudest and the one that's going to email the CEO, that's going to call and blow up customer service, that's going to CC 50 people on the emails, that is the person that gets their stuff done. Because even though we don't like when the person does that, we understand the consequences of that being done. We know that if someone CCs 50 people on an email, that even if we can explain it, it's not a good look. We understand that if a customer calls the CEO, even if it's something that's very reasonable, that the CEO is probably going to promise to get it done in a very short amount of time. So when you look at just the simplest aspect of work, that ultimately means that when you are nice, when you are quiet, when you are accommodating, when you are understanding, we'll say, that often means that you will get the attention when the attention is available. And so if the squeaky wheel squeaks every single day that week, then they may not get to you that week because you don't ever say anything. And at the same time, while I do agree that that isn't the way that things should be, I think we all agree that that is the way that things are. That none of us want to have our spot blown out. And so sometimes being too nice and too accommodating, it removes the accountability aspect of the relationship. When I was teaching, I used to tell my students all the time, I said, as wonderful of a person as I am, and I'd be like, and I'm a wonderful person. I was like, the only reason that I don't speed is because I know that there's a chance I'll get a speeding ticket. And I don't want a speeding ticket. So I would decide not to speed. If there were no speed limits, if there was no enforcement of those, then I would drive as fast as I thought I could safely get there. Because I don't want to be on the road any longer than anyone else. And I think it's true for all of us. That if the accountability is removed from you being too nice, then most people are not going to do what is necessary. Even when it comes to sales, when I discuss with people and I tell people, look, I'm not here to make you do something that you don't want to do or you can't afford or you don't find value in, but I will provide enough value, I'll uncover enough value that if it makes sense to you, then you'll move forward. Well, unfortunately, even if you read most psychology books, we procrastinate on things that we know we need to do. Right? I know I'm not the only one, and I'm sure you're not the only one, that we all procrastinate, and that there is a variety of ways of procrastinating. In fact, I'll link to my video where I talk about the 6 types of procrastination. And so as we procrastinate, how are we then motivated to do something? We add that accountability layer. We add scarcity. We add something in there where, if I was to go on to Udemy or some program where they'll say, hey, there's a sale and this sale ends on Friday at midnight, then that adds a layer of accountability where you and I know, well, we're going to do it anyways. But if they add some sort of a deadline, then I'll take action. That is what is missing when we're too nice. When we're too nice, because there's no accountability, no one is taking action. No one is doing what they need to do, what they promised to do, and what is agreed upon. And without you being someone that's not nice by society standards, then no one is going to take action even if they know that they need to do it. And that is why being too nice can ultimately impact our success and happiness. How are you going to get promoted if you don't hold your superiors accountable? Sure, there are some times that they will promote you because they appreciate everything that you've done and that there's no squeaky wheel. But if there is a squeaky wheel, if there is someone that's saying, if I don't get promoted, I'm going to leave, and then that person ends up getting promoted, while they may be as valuable or even slightly less valuable than you, because there is no fear of you leaving, they end up saying, okay, well, I'll get to Dre next year because I got to deal with this problem this year. Well, what if next year there's another problem? Well, Dre hasn't said anything, so I'll get to Dre again next year, and we'll just push it back one more year. You have to let people know exactly what it is that you're looking for, and you have to let them know that they will be held accountable to that. Obviously, you're not going to threaten them or give them an ultimatum, but I have found that when you're in leadership, you don't always clearly know what it is that the person is trying to communicate with you. You think that the person is happy, you think that everything's okay, that maybe they like the work-life balance, or maybe they like the freedom. Like, we don't know what they like, and because they haven't said anything, and so we think everything's okay, and then they give you 2 weeks notice and they're like, I'm leaving. I think that each of us should give leadership an opportunity to fix whatever the problem is by telling them exactly what it is that we have an issue with. And just by going along to get along, that we do end up going a long, long ways off of the path of our success. Even as an entrepreneur running a business, it took me a while to learn that everyone can't afford my services, and that's okay. It's not something that I enjoy saying, but it is something that is true. I think we would all agree that there are different cars that we can afford or can't afford. There's different services and trips and vacations, different schools that we would go to, that we all understand that there are certain things that we find value in and we're willing to spend money on it, and then there's certain things that we don't find the same value in and we're not willing to spend the money on it. And so me trying to be nice in my entrepreneurial journey, I would often try to find a way to serve everyone. But you really can't serve everyone. You have to be very specific about what you are working to do. And that's why I work with families who want to use strategic retirement planning strategies to unlock generational wealth. And for most people, they're not very much concerned about generational wealth, and that's okay. And a lot of people, they're not concerned about retirement because they've been fed the lie that retirement is something that you do a long, long ways down the road. But the truth is, retirement just means that you can withdraw from the life of trading your time for money. And that's really all it is. And so whatever age that works for you, 30 or 130, that's when you can put a plan so that you can stop trading your time for money and you can start putting your money to work. And for most families, once we unlock the ability to do that, then we know the next level is making sure we pass that information to our kids. Things that we wish we knew slightly earlier that would have been a game changer. We're like, okay, well, I want to make sure my kids are set up in a way that they don't have to go through some of the same struggles that I did. Because that's really, to me, what I think the goal of parenting is to leave the next generation better equipped than we were. Where we figured out something at 30, if we tell our kid at 10, and obviously you may say, well, Dre, they're not listening at 10. Maybe not. I don't know. But if you tell your kid at 10, well, now they have 20 more years of that knowledge to where when they're 30, they should be exponentially further than you. And that's what I strive to do. When you talk about being too nice, even as a parent, where you don't hold your kids accountable, where you don't expect them to do anything. You do everything for them. They can hang out anywhere with anyone. You and I both know that that's not a recipe for success. Even though our kids don't like us all the time, it doesn't mean that we don't love them. We're doing what we believe is best for them. And it doesn't mean that we're right, because in a few years we may say, well, I wouldn't do that again. And I've done that. I have 4 kids. So there's things that I've done with my first kid that I wouldn't do with my 4th kid. There's things that I've done with my first kid that I repeat with my 4th. Parenting is a learning process. As we see things and we learn things and we see the results of some of our actions, and we grow and we become more aware of things within the own aspect of our wisdom of parenting. where there are certain things that we made a big deal out of and they're not a big deal. And then there's other things that were pretty significant, where it was like life altering. And I'm not trying to be like over the top, but there were things that had an impact that took a while to correct, where we just felt like if we could have nipped that a little bit earlier, it would have saved us all a bunch of time. Oftentimes, I find the problem that a lot of parents have is they're trying to be their kid's friend. And while I can appreciate the joy of being your kid's friend, because I mean, hey, who wouldn't want the person that we love the most in the world as our kids and our family and our spouse to love us back and appreciate us back and to give us those hugs and say you're the best. But there are studies that shows that a lot of kids, the ones that have structure, when they get older, they appreciate the structure. The light turns on. They can see all of the benefits of what the parents were trying to teach them. And then the opposite is also true, that some kids that were free and able to do everything they wanted, where their parents didn't give them any consequences, the world wasn't so nice. And the world gave them a ton of consequences. And sometimes we misunderstand what it is to be nice, where being nice isn't giving someone what they want. Being nice is giving someone what they need. And it's okay to give someone something that they need, even if they don't know that they need it just yet. And they may be kicking and screaming, but it's okay because you're doing what's best for them. And you don't want to be too nice, because there's nothing that I could imagine that would be tougher for me than my kids growing up and not being prepared for the world. And then they look at me and they're like, Dad, you didn't tell me that the world was going to be like this. You did not prepare me for the way the world is. Everything's not rainbows and Skittles. And it's something that I think about often. And so I try to push and encourage and expose and let my kids know what's going on in the world and how to be prepared for it. I don't want to be too nice, but I do want to enjoy them just like anyone else, right? My kids are going to grow up and they're going to leave and they're going to have their own families, and and I may not see them as much. So I do want to enjoy the moment with them, where they want to sit on my lap, we can sit and hang out. When I watch a silly movie, we can watch a silly movie. We take trips, we do different things. But at the same time, they only have, one dad, and they have tons of friends. And so I have to be their dad because that's all they have. And they only have one. If I don't fill that hole won't be filled. And then they'll be lacking. They'll be missing that. And there are lots of studies that talks about the difficulties of a single parent household, and just the fact that moms offer one and dads offer another, and then that gives the kid the balance that they need. And so I try to be the dad. I try to be me. I try to fill my role. I don't try to make my wife fill my role. The way that she parents is different than the way that I parent, but I know that the kid needs both. And so that used to be something that we would butt heads on, where I would say, you have to be more this and this and that. But it's okay, right? That's my role. I do my role and she does her role, and the kids turn out wonderful. I mean, at least so far, right? No, I'm just kidding. They're really good kids. And so hopefully you can see that whichever aspect of life we're talking about, if you are unwilling to hold people accountable, then it will be worse off than it would have been. Your family will be worse off if you're too nice. Your relationship with your friends will be worse off if you're too nice. Your business will be worse off if you are too nice. And the place that you work will be worse off if you are too nice. And what it is iron sharpens iron. So as a result, we have to be forthright and have those difficult conversations if we're going to improve and be better. We have to be willing to defend and explain our situation and be willing to listen and understand someone else's. And that if everyone is just going along to get along, then that means that most people don't have the ability or the opportunity to improve based off the feedback that you would have given them. And so it's in your best interest for your own life, for your personal, professional, and any other aspect of your life, to not be too nice in the sense that you aren't holding anyone accountable. And that's generally what I'm talking about, right? Nice as far as how we talk to people. I think we should talk to people with respect. I think we should listen to other people, not cut people off, not yell at people, not call people names. But that to me isn't what it means to be too nice. Most of the time in our society, being nice has been changed to not holding anyone accountable, where nothing is said when we know that something is wrong. We know that the bridge is out up ahead, and if we just got the car to stop, then we can save everyone's life. That to me is what being too nice is. You can't live that type of a life, because that will erode at you. You will feel guilt. You will you will be overlooked when it comes to your professional life, and it will impact your happiness and your success on a regular basis. If you like the video, I ask you to like and subscribe, and feel free to check out other Wisdometric videos if you're looking for ways to eradicate financial stress, generate passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy.